But I wanna be like Lee Van Cleef. You know I wanna be like Lee. Whatever happened to Lee Van Cleef? Whatever happened to Lee?
Blood and Black Rum Podcast presents God's Gun. Hey guys, welcome back to the Blood and Black Rum Podcast. I'm Ryan from coldsploitation.com, and I'm joined by my co-host Martin.
How's it going?
Pretty good. We missed our normal Friday podcast episode because we had planned on doing an episode, and then the weather was just awful that day.
Next 2 days.
Yeah, it was.
And then the day before that, we got the blizzard of 2019.
Yeah, it was bad, and we couldn't do it on that day because it was just so icy, and we decided to call it off. So we're recording a little bit later, and then this was going to go up, a couple days after when we normally post. But just so you know, that's why.
It's a sign.
What's that?
A sign from God that we do an episode today about the movie we're doing on the Lord's Day.
That is true. Sunday.
See, when you were debating about which movie we should do, this is the Lord guiding.
There's the sign right there.
It's Lee Van Cleef guiding us. In our journey.
Down from heaven. He's giving us a sign here. Yeah, absolutely. So for this episode, we said last time that we were going to do a spaghetti western and sort of get back to the roots of some of the things that we were interested in when we started this podcast, and that was not superhero films.
Clickbait.
Yeah, exactly. And so we decided to do a spaghetti western that was one that really is very obscure, not well known at all. I've actually never heard of this one before. I kind of did some IMDb roulette on this one to kind of like narrow down our decision on what we wanted to do for a spaghetti western. So I started off kind of broad. We started off with spaghetti western as just a theme. Then I narrowed down a little bit more. I said, you know what? Who's one of our favorite actors from spaghetti westerns? Lee Van Cleef. In general. So let's take a look at Lee Van Cleef movies from spaghetti westerns. And then I said, you know what? Also, let's take a look at later spaghetti westerns. Because, our first one was an earlier spaghetti western film, and I said, you know what? Let's take a look at some of the older or some of the newer ones that came out at the tail end of like that era of filmmaking. So I picked a 1976 spaghetti western film. Actually, it is a Israeli spaghetti western film because it's produced by Golan and Globus, and they filmed much of it in Israel. So I don't know what that makes it.
I asked you, is that making it like a dreidel west, a Lacko western?
Basically, I really don't know what that makes it. But it is technically a spaghetti western. It is God's Gun, starring Lee Van Cleef and Jack Palance, who was in quite a few westerns as well at this time, and then moving forward, he did quite a few more.
Also an Academy Award winner.
Yeah. You wouldn't know it from this film, but he is one. This film is kind of a weird offering for all parties involved. So this would have been Lee Van Cleef sort of coming to the tail end of his... I mean, he would still do some films after this, but these were some of his last films that he would put out. And you said in 4 years after this movie, he would be going into Escape from New York with John Carpenter. And I think, what was his last movie? I'm just going to take a look here and see.
Really in 84.
It was, actually, I guess he did have a couple credits even up to 1990 in Thieves of Fortune. But towards the end here, he had a very prolific career in the 60s and even the early 70s. And then once you get up to, God's Gun and Escape from New York, he really kind of slowed down at that point into the 80s. He was getting older. As you can see from Escape from New York, he's definitely getting older in that film. That really shows his age And surprisingly, though, he did keep doing action films throughout, I guess, the 80s, just not as prolifically as he used to in the 70s and 60s.
He's just like Bronson, got that DNA in him.
Yep, exactly. Just got to keep going. And the other thing about this film is that Jack Palance, like we said before, Academy Award winner, seems like your elderly, senile grandfather in this movie. As we'll talk about a little bit more when we get into it, but most of the character, every actor in this movie is not showing the range that they really have. In terms of like what they can do. And this film has a surprising number of people in it. Because it has Lee Van Cleef, Jack Palance, as we mentioned. It has Sybil Danning in this, who would have gone on to, she went on to do quite a few like 80s Italian films, action movies, like sort of those knockoff 80s Italian films. So she did actually quite a bit of things. Leif Garrett is in here as the young boy Johnny.
Which just blows my mind.
Yeah, no,
it's
right?
like, wow.
It's just kind of it's a weird thing, you know? And I believe, you know, also Richard Boone was I'm not really that familiar with him, but I know he was a bigger actor again in like the early 60s and 50s, of doing, you know, a whole bunch of different TV shows and movies. He was in The Alamo. So he did a lot of things too, just earlier on in his career. So this would have been later in his career. I think this would have probably been, he did only 5 more films after this one. And apparently, a nice trivia that IMDb relates here is that in God's Gun, he got into a drunken argument and actually stormed off the set, so he never got to dub his lines. Because even though most of the actors on this film spoke English, like almost every single Italian film, they redubbed it anyway. Because
one of the great sins too of Italian filmmaking,
of just dubbing over the English speaking actors.
Just not only that, but just because, you know, they tend to just take from whatever country, they don't give a shit, you know. Language be damned. You speak French, you speak Spanish, you speak. We dub over, you know, and it's just, you know.
Yeah, I mean, and this one would have been even more egregious because you were filming in Israel as well. So they did grab some Israeli actors for this one, like Nina Rosenblum, or apparently she was at one point Nina Golan. And Golan and Globus were the main producers on this film. So you did have those Israeli actors as well that were
probably spoke English
too.
So.
Yeah, I mean, and so you had like a whole combination, and then eventually what they just end up doing is like, you know what? No, we're not going to use any of this. We're just going to redub everybody.
Like I said, that's just how they do it. It's like,
yeah,
I don't know. It's just terrible.
I guess it makes it easier for them. They don't really need to worry about it in production itself. They just do it all in post production.
Don't need to pay a mic guy.
Yeah, exactly. And then you do it all, and then you do 2. I mean, you do 2 dubs. You do one for Italian, and you do one for English, or you do sometimes quite a bit. They did Spanish too, so you had the Spanish dub, and so they would just do it all at once and then get it over with. Just redub everything, and there you go. So God's Gun, definitely an odd duck, and one that like I'm surprised has never been re-released on Blu-ray because
I'm not.
I mean, I'm not surprised as well, but I know that like a lot of these the Blu-ray producers, they're really just plumbing the depths of like spaghetti westerns and stuff. So I know like Kino has done quite a few spaghetti westerns that are pretty generic and obscure. They've Blue Underground has done a few. Like our first episode we did was a Blue Underground spaghetti western, Man, Pride, and Vengeance. And then Arrow Video also does quite a few. Like they are releasing, they released, I think it was a collection of Clint Eastwood films that is not the
Man with No Name.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I think it's like I'm not even really familiar with these. It's like Sabato, I think.
Hang 'em High.
No, it was a series of them that Clint Eastwood did. I believe it was like Sabato. Or I think it was. But it's not really that big of a deal right now. But Arrow Video, they like to really plumb the depths as well and
We might as well though, for
Yeah.
posterity's sake. Now that like everything, we have the technology to keep everything ever basically recorded and stored. You might as well, even that little turd like Mako, plumb the depths, clean it up, show people, hey, somebody had a vision, somebody made
Sartana. That's what I was thinking of. Sartana. I agree. I mean, you might as well like bring it out. So that's why I'm saying, even though God's Gun is probably like on the bottom tier of spaghetti westerns, and probably there's not very many people around to, even if you were trying to get extra features or something like that, there's not anybody to interview for it really, except maybe Leif Garrett, and I think in Sybil Danning probably as well, although whether they'd actually want to be involved with it after that or remember what happened,
I don't know,
maybe not, but and it is surprising that they haven't given this a release. It was only released on DVD, and I think they released it as like a double feature. But if you try to find this film online, it's pretty difficult to find a really good version of it. The only thing that we really could find was a YouTube copy of it that was in very poor condition, as though somebody was filming it on like a like a projection screen. And
Ryan said TV at first, and I said, well, who would be airing this on TV?
Apparently somebody did. I did see a comment on IMDb that somebody watched it on late night TV. I don't know who aired it. I don't know where it was.
It must be like some like channel out in like Des Moines, Iowa.
Yes.
Like just like in like
that somebody happened to have like a copy of it.
Like their local UHF channel. There you go. It's like aired on like a UHF channel.
I would be interested to see the DVD version of this, just to see what the quality's like, because the YouTube one, that the copy that we watched was really poor, but you could get the gist of it, so it worked in that sense.
Made you feel like you're back in 1992.
Yeah, and this one we actually tried to watch a previous version that was in the correct aspect ratio, not cut down to 4:3, and that one was in I think it was Italian.
Yeah.
So we couldn't watch that one. But then we ended up having to watch the 4:3 version, which was really, you could tell like sometimes it was cut even more because they were like zooming the camera on stuff. It was not the best quality version to watch, but we got the gist, definitely.
It didn't hamper the
how
you
it was definitely like when we watched Mako. Which was like the terrible VHS tracking lines copy of Mako that we watched.
They should make that a thing. Like, how like when you when you buy like a classic game on like PlayStation 4 and Xbox One now, or like they have like a remaster of it.
Yeah.
And they have like clean, crisp cut where like like for like Sonic Mania, it's like clean, like HD, beautiful looking graphics, and then you can turn it to like have like pixelated and have tracking lines on there too if you want. You
want that on your Blu-rays?
To feel the stuff. Yeah, like have that, but make that an option. Like I want tracking lines, and then it'll just like come in like
reel is missing. Like all of a sudden he picks up after one reel, and you're like, what happened there? And you just no, that's authentic. That's how it would have been.
Shoot your Blu-ray out of the PS4, like
yeah.
What happened? Oh, it ate the tape.
That would be fun. They should do that. They should, just as a fun little
slap on every every Blu-ray to be kind and rewind.
Actually, they do that on the MVD Entertainment ones. They do. If you look on, I have a couple right over there, and they do put the sticker on it.
Be kind and rewind.
Be kind, rewind. Yep, they do that. All right, let's take a break real quick from talking about God's Gun, and talk about the beer that we've had on the show tonight. One that you picked up special for this show, and then ended up not really enjoying it all that much.
No, not really.
And it's surprising too, because this is a new style that's coming out that a lot of places are really adopting. And we did the other one on here, right?
Yeah,
we did Sierra Nevada's on here. We're talking about the Brut IPA style, which is a style of IPA that emphasizes the dryness of a Brut champagne paired with the hoppiness of the IPA. I really like this style because I like champagne, I like Brut champagne, and I also do like IPAs. And I know you like the Sierra Nevada one quite a bit, as we talked about on the show. That was the last show, right? We had it on the last show?
Yeah.
Yeah. But this one that we got you didn't like. So we had Omegang's Brew IPA tonight.
Yes.
Omegang being a local Cooperstown brewery that actually has expanded quite a bit, and it gets out to a number of places. They're a Belgian-style brewery, and so IPAs really aren't huge in their wheelhouse, but they do a couple, and they gave their shot at a Brew IPA. So I'll let you take it away first to talk about what you didn't like about this one.
I didn't really care for it. I mean, I'm not that big of a champagne fan to begin with. Sierra Nevada's Brew IPA I liked, as I talked about last episode, because it did have like a dryness of a champagne, but not really an overwhelming champagne taste. So it was like an IPA, but it had like a very dry finish. It was really good. I like that. It was like it was different, weird, but I liked it. It was really good. This, on the other hand, is very dry and very champagne-like. It tastes like you're drinking champagne with a slight hoppiness to it. It's not very hoppy. In fact, I would say that calling it an IPA is being very generous. It's not really hoppy at all. But what really throws me off is the fact that it has like this Belgian yeast taste to it too. That's like really lingers, and that like it makes it taste really kind of like a skunky beer. Like it doesn't fit like with the style that they're going for. That's one of the things that's the most off-putting for this beer style for me, is that it tastes a lot like a champagne, barely hoppy, and then got a really lingering yeast taste to it.
Yeah, I don't know. I saw some people commenting on that yeast taste to it. I didn't get it so much. I just felt like this was sort of on par with Sierra Nevada's, but perhaps maybe a little bit more on the champagne dryness side to it, with a little less of that hop flavor. I agree. But I still liked it quite a bit, especially, I think it really depends on if you like champagne, dry wine taste or not.
I don't.
If you don't, you're not going to like... I mean, I think
I'm a working man, Ryan. Yeah. We don't have time for that.
I think that you're going to have a hard time liking Brut IPAs in general, but perhaps with this one, because the dryness is so pronounced in it, it's even more difficult to enjoy if you're not into, the dry wine aspects of what it has going for it in the flavor profile. Now, I did think that the hops were present. It just wasn't like super pronounced here. And like I said, Omegang does not do IPAs. They're not like one of the...
I mean, I only know of this and they're Nirvana.
Yeah, they're not like a brewer that specializes in IPAs. They don't do very many.
Which I'm thankful for.
Yeah.
I'm thankful for,
It's actually surprising because, most other breweries are doing all kinds of IPAs. They're trying out every different kind of IPA. And in this one, they really don't try that many. So I guess it's kind of nice that they gave the Brut IPA a shot, and it's also become like a super popular beer style at this point. Everybody's trying it. But maybe not their best, selection in their line. The other thing that they do a lot of are Game of Thrones beers. They have a huge Game of Thrones tie-in. So if you know about Omegang, you've probably seen those beers. Those are like one of their more popular.
Now, in Game of Thrones, do they like sit there with like their mead glass and like have like the Omegang's logo on it? Like,
honestly, I have no idea. Like, I don't watch Game of Thrones.
Like, yes,
I've never seen Game of Thrones.
Peter Dinklage, yes, yes.
Yeah, meaty. No, that is surprising though. I don't think Omegang has made a mead. You know what? Like to go along with the whole.
No,
I don't think they've made a mead.
Who the fuck goes out of their way to sit down and drink a mead?
Not me.
Except people who are playing D&D.
It's true.
No offense.
No,
I'm sure I would love D&D, but I mean, I've only tried mead a couple of times, and I've like,
yeah,
not for me.
No, I don't really like any of that sweetness, like with the honey and.
It's not even that it was like sweet. It's like got the thickness of like honey, and it's like I don't want to be tasting like I'm sucking, honey down.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think. I mean, I haven't had a bunch of them, so I'd have to try it again and see if I like it. Anything else you want to talk about for beer?
No, that's all I really had.
That's pretty much it for me. Nothing else like spectacular that stands out. So we'll leave it at that. The Amagang Brew IPA is out now in a 4-pack.
It's like $12.
You can. I don't know if it's really wide release, but you can try to find it.
Yeah,
should be around somewhere.
I want to know who thought of like pairing the two. Like, how many joints do you have to smoke to like think of that idea?
What, of a champagne and a IPA?
Yeah,
I don't know.
What's next? A bourbon IPA, like a sake IPA? They're just gonna like take random, different like alcohols and combine them with an IPA.
Yeah, what would like a tequila IPA, something like that? That would work, I think. Tequila lime IPA, I could see that.
I could.
Yeah.
A vodka
there you go.
IPA.
It's the next one. That's the next one.
Yeah, there we go. The IPA for college kids, vodka IPA.
Yeah, and if somebody takes it, that's gonna be our
trademark.
That's our trademark.
We need 25%.
I'm experimenting with sound effects here on my iPad, so we're gonna have new
heading into morning show territory.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
No, because you know what? That's one of the funny. That is actually one of the funny like jokes from Family Guy when they're like doing like the radio show, like morning jock
just,
show,
like, hitting
and
on,
like like Stewie like hit, like every drop on the board, like
yeah, no, I
know.
Yeah, we're just gonna pepper that in now in our shows. So, all right, let's move on to God's Gun. We'll get right into it. We'll we'll really go at it here.
You can stop.
Yeah. So God's Gun is also known as a bullet from God, and also
the Italian.
Diamante Lobo.
Yeah, the Italian
name. Yeah,
name
which
is
would be
better.
the Italian name. You know what's really the best part about God's Gun? The poster art. It's
gotta lure patrons in somehow.
It's got that classic Lee Van Cleef style to it. That like in the poster, Lee Van Cleef looks like Lee Van Cleef from any 60s spaghetti western where he was really badass. He looks like himself. In the film,
even in the poster, it looks like they kind of
did give him that scruff and the.
No, I mean like Asianed him up a little bit.
Yeah. But in the film, Lee Van Cleef does not look like Lee Van Cleef.
I want to know what happened. Why?
Why did they want him to go with this style?
Why did they why? I mean, I know Italian directors are quirky, but why does he have to have a middle-aged page boy mullet?
The one thing that stands out is
which I'm convinced is fake.
I think it is too, because if you see, so there's we should start from the beginning. Lee Van Cleef in this film is
doing double duty.
Yeah, basically. He plays a priest,
Father John Misty.
Yeah, who is basically the priest and apparent leader of this small. They call it a city, but it's really
Juneau City.
Juneau City. It's really a town. It's like two.
Well,
buildings.
that's what I was asking you. I'm like, man, the definite. What made a city back in the 1870s?
Yeah.
You got a pharmacy? Well, no, back then, got an apothecary? Yeah. Got a saloon? Yeah. Got a gambling hall? Yeah. Church? Prison? Yeah. 20 people? Yeah. You got yourself a city.
You're the big city, yeah. But he's the priest, and apparently, almost like honorary mayor / somewhat sheriff, because he does have a say in what people do there, of this city. And he's been the adoptive father figure of a young boy, Leif Garrett, Johnny. And he has sort of taken him under his wing as a little page boy.
Which he does have a middle, nice page boy haircut.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. And so Lee Van Cleef is playing this priest, which I thought was sort of the draw of God's Gun, is that Lee Van Cleef plays a priest. It's great. And he has a ridiculous haircut as the priest.
And not only that, a ridiculous fucking goatee.
Yeah. Yep. And all of
this just like, when we were watching it, I told you, I go, like, man, how is it the 70s looks so much shoddier, crappier, just so like cheesier, and just like
everything was like very chintzy.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I was drawing a blank on not in this, but in general, like compared to 10 years ago, film quality, sound quality, like everything just sounds, looks more dilapidated and crappier than like 10 years prior.
Yeah.
Like, and I know this is a low budget film, but like it goes like for all 70s films, like, oh, that nice period piece western from like 1967. Oh, that's a great film. Oh, that western from 1977. Everyone has mullets and afros, and that guy's just wearing regular boots. They're not even bothering. But like, and they're not even having like mustaches that, these nice, thick, unkempt mustache. No, everyone's got Tom Selleck and what's going on? I don't understand. The little boy's running around. How do you know it's the 70s? Well, his shirt's unbuttoned at the top, so he can, instead of being...
There definitely is some modernization to this film that you wouldn't have seen in the 60s, for this time period. Obviously, it doesn't really
just,
match.
It sticks out like a sore thumb.
And I think part of that is, like, Lee Van Cleef, such an iconic character from spaghetti westerns. He's been in so many. Then you have him playing this priest character with a very ridiculous haircut that is so prominent when he has his cap off, because he normally wears the black cowboy hat cap. And when he has it off, he has like this very, I don't know, it's such a weird, like Jerry curl sort of thing.
It looks like Thomas Jefferson's like powdered wig in his presidential portrait, except instead of being white, it's sheer black. Like they, painted it tar black. Just like, all right, we know your hair color's not that black, but we know we need to be ebony, nice, and
very, very strange. But as we said, Lee Van Cleef is playing double duty here. It's kind of nerve-wracking at first because about 30 minutes into the movie, Lee Van Cleef's character, Father John, is murdered. And you're like, oh shit, is Johnny gonna have to like carry the weight of this film the whole time? Well, no, you're in luck, because as in Italian, as weird as Italians get, here we go. There's a twin. Father John has a twin.
Well, we knew he had a brother.
Yeah.
Because he talks about him.
But guess what? They look exactly alike, except different haircuts and
barely. It's not. No, yeah. It's the same haircut.
And also, Lewis has a Mexican daughter because they live in Mexico, and so the whole thing with that is now Lee Van Cleef doesn't really have that sort of weird Jerry curl because he wears his cap. But he does sort of, as you mentioned, sometimes look like a samurai because he has like the pulled back ponytail.
He started the man bun.
Yeah, and then
it's so terrible. Like who like. Oh, it just looks so cheap and like tacky.
And the thing is that it's because they make him look somewhat Asian in this movie. I don't know how that happens, but he looks Asian. And
it's like what was he like? Had like a rough couple of months, and they found him at the local Y, and like, all right, Lee,
we're gonna give you some work.
We got some work for you, finally.
Actually, double the work.
Yeah,
I don't know why they specifically chose like this look for him, but it doesn't work in this movie.
All I can tell you is the same thing I told you when we watched it. Is like just from watching previous Italian films, the Italian directors outside of Sergio Leone are fucking batty out of their mind and always pick these quirky, over-the-top juxtapositions to go with their films.
Yeah.
Maybe, and I'm guessing, and I've never been to Italy, and I've, or anything like that, and I'm not as well endowed in their culture and humor to understand, but I'm assuming somewhere in there is, would make sense,
I guess, yeah. And the director of this, Gianfranco Parolini, he goes by, like, Jack Kramer as the director in this, or Frank Kramer in this one. But he worked with Lee Van Cleef quite a bit on spaghetti westerns. He did direct one of the Sabata films. He also, actually directed both Sabata films. He also directed one of the Sartana films that I was mentioning earlier. So he did have quite a bit of work with Lee Van Cleef, although he wasn't like a very prolific director in Italian films like some of the other Italian filmmakers were. But he also looks like worked on quite a few sword and sandal flicks as well in the early 60s.
Ah, yes.
So, interesting juxtaposition here that obviously I think like...
What is a sword and sandal film but a Western set in ancient Rome?
Basically, that's what it is. Yeah, it's very, it has that same sort of style to it. But getting back to God's Gun, the film is a really generic idea for a spaghetti western. Like, there's nothing in this movie that is really outstandingly different from a spaghetti western film. It has the same ideas, like
the same beats to
exactly,
just like Death Rides a Horse, another Lee Van Cleef film, just like Day of Anger, another Lee Van Cleef,
they follow the
same typical revenge story with a mentor and person trying to enact the revenge and generic bad guy. The difference between like Death Rides a Horse and Day of Anger and this is that the quality of how this film is made compared to like those two, and even though we liked both those films, they're not that those are also kind of
they're bottom tier. They're
not bottom
middle
tier,
maybe.
but like they're like spaghetti westerns are already a niche genre, and westerns are a niche genre. Spaghetti westerns are even more niche. Those two movies are even more like niche within the niche of the niche.
Yeah.
So,
and God's Gun is really getting down there.
It's for diehards only.
This is one of those films, especially coming so late in the spaghetti western fad, that you basically are getting probably like a very watered down version of other spaghetti westerns that came before it. This is literally like beat for beat. Probably Lee Van Cleef didn't even really need to rehearse or anything because he was like, he didn't need to read the script. He's like, I know how this goes.
He knew exactly why they hired it.
Exactly the way that most of his other films go. There's really nothing different about this. And so you
gotta say, you can even say it's not just like the lowering of. I mean, like not the lowering, but. The waning of spaghetti. It's the waning of westerns in general.
Yeah. Yeah, they were,
outside, after the early mid 70s, westerns essentially died. And you have your sporadic, films throughout, like Unforgiven and, a couple of remakes like 310 to Yuma and,
Tombstone.
That's not a remake, but they become a lot more sporadic.
Yeah.
It's not nearly the popular genre that it, was through the 40s to the 60s.
Yeah. So it's at this point, it's really kind of getting to the end of it. And so this is one of your more generic offerings. The only thing that really stands out here is that there is this priest character. So it's not really, that's generally not something that you're exploring in a spaghetti western. And then you also have the twin aspect, which I don't know that I've ever seen a literal twin aspect to spaghetti western. You do have some of those elements where you think that the one of the main protagonists has died and they come back. In this case, it's literally not him coming back, but his twin brother who is helping Johnny to avenge his brother's death and then also basically kick out all the outlaws in town.
I was really hoping that with the whole priest gimmick for Lee Van Cleef that he'd be more like Wolfwood from Trigun. Mm-hmm. You know, like have him walk around like a cross or something. You know, giant cross and murder outlaws. At least, he's just some bland motherfucker out.
Yeah, the priest aspect to this film with Lee Van Cleef is sort of disappointing because it goes away so quickly. They do have a moment where it seems like he's a pretty cool guy, where he goes and he actually, after the first part of the Clayton gang comes into town and they kill a man in a bar, he goes out to get them, basically, and he goes out and gets the one guy who's responsible for the murder and brings him back. That's a pretty cool element to this film that really doesn't show up again, because by that time, Lee Van Cleef's priest character is dead already. And so you really...
Which is going to happen, because they're like, yeah, sure, take him,
Yeah.
And they're like, we'll ride back into town, and
honestly, it's a really bad idea for Lee Van Cleef to actually do that as the priest character, because he knows, like, what are they going to do? Just, like, not retaliate and, like, oh, well, we'll ride on off.
Well, because as justice must be served, damn it.
Yeah.
Even though the sheriff's a smart one, like, look, I don't want no trouble.
Yeah.
I know these guys are, like, raping, murdering, robbing assholes. I'd really just like them to, they're passing through now. Let's not, draw any more attention.
And that guy was an asshole anyway. He's basically...
He was gonna kill the guy at the card table anyway, yeah. So... It was, he got fucking Bob Dylan and Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, knifed in the back, but...
Yeah, and actually, you know what? Lee Van Cleef's father, Johnny, actually makes things a lot worse.
Yeah.
'Cause he's like the person that instigates the Clayton gang coming back. Obviously, they would not have come back if he hadn't have taken one guy back to be arrested. And then they basically end up taking over the town and becoming their own, martial law there in town. So he made things incredibly worse. I think he caused probably like 6 rapes, which we see in pretty intricate detail for quite a bit of the like 5 minutes of a scene is just devoted to like running down women in the saloon and trying to rip their clothes off as they run around in circles in the saloon. And it's a pretty lengthy scene for something of a film that really is sort of like, I would say, more so lighthearted than some of the other spaghetti westerns. This one kind of emphasizes the goofier aspects of a spaghetti western, especially Jack Palance, because
who was smiling and just like fucking like he's singing in the rain, just like that's which that does kind of make sense, because maybe with him like kind of like having that shit eating singing in the rain grin in the rape scene, they're like, oh, it's just like Kubrick's A Clockwork Orange.
Yeah, it is a weird, like, Jack Palance in this film. I think he works in some ways, but he's also really hamming it up, and I think that's part of the direction as well.
I don't think, and I think part of the problem is his dub is awful.
Yeah.
The way his voice is dubbed over and then how he's acting is just... Because his dub the entire time is like this fucking monotone, and then like he's just sitting like off in La La Land giving shit-eating, as you said, senile grandfather smiles like, oh, what's going on here? We're going to the ball game? Wow, that looks like fun.
Yeah. It's really... I don't know. Like, the film has a weird tonality to it that... I don't know that it always works. I feel like it's like a little bit more lighthearted than some of the other spaghetti westerns, but at the same time, it does have those, those themes of rape and murder, and basically his whole town has been enslaved by this posse. So it does have those serious elements to it too. So it's a really weird combination.
Well, I would say, and as I was telling you, most spaghetti westerns kind of have like a overly serious tone to them.
Yeah.
But they do have their like quirky, and that's out of place moment. Like, like humor or music or whatever the fuck wise. This one's like serious, but it is also a little like tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
And you can see it throughout the film, like, it's more tongue-in-cheek tone. But I do think some of the places where they have that tongue-in-cheek, like, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, like, during that nice elongated 5-minute, saloon rape fest. Like, yeah, and like, hey, when we find out, Johnny's, actually Jack Palance's son, and how is he my son? Oh, I remember that time you raped a girl in the Civil War,
Yeah.
And they had this, nice, like, going down memory lane,
Flashback sequence
with happy, when Johnny comes to marching music and, soft focus lens and, it's just...
It's a weird tone to it, I'm telling you. It's
tone deaf.
It's weird. It's very strange. I think that, that's probably one of the worst aspects to the film, but probably the most egregious aspect of this film is the soundtrack that's trying to be Ennio Morricone, but failing miserably in this regard.
Well, I told you I compared it to, like, Bonanza's theme, except they just went off the rails and ruined it, because it does have, like, that same, like, guitar, like,
again, this is another area where this film seems weirdly put together. Like, because it does have the guitar tone of, Bonanza or Gunsmoke, but then it also has a really weird, strange synth element to it that sometimes crops up.
And then because we have her whole religious church motif, crashing organ, and then we go into, like, a nice little harpsichord melodies, and then we go into, back to the guitar. And then when we meet Lewis, who is Lee Van Cleef's brother, played by Lee Van Cleef, every time he looks, he gets a steely-eyed stare into the camera. You hear, bang, bang, bang! Like...
Yeah, there is, that is, like, a woman screeching or something. And that's, like, just his theme of just whenever he does something...
Not even. It's just when he's
there.
He's just giving a stare, like, I'm going to do something. Bang, bang! Like, he hasn't fired his gun or anything. It's just bang, bang, bang!
It's a...
Again, as I told you, that's a decision only an Italian filmmaker would make. Like, okay, I see in this scene, Lee Van Cleef is looking in the camera. He's pissed. He's going to revenge. And when he's looking I want to hear bang. Oh, you want to hear a gunshot bang? No, I want someone yelling bang.
Yeah. I want someone screaming for some reason.
Can you imagine when you're playing Red Dead and you're, like, doing, like, a shootout and you're about to draw, and before you fire the gun, after you fire the gun, you just hear, like, and then you hear bang, 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 to symbolize, Arthur won the fight.
It's a strange decision, but I guess, it works in the long run for this film. The person who composed it was Santa Maria Romatelli, who did do A Hatchet for the Honeymoon, which is another Italian giallo film. And it looks like a few other spaghetti westerns as well.
But not only that, again, as I said a billion times on this podcast, Italians love their juxtaposition, especially when it comes to soundtracks.
Yeah.
Got zombies eating people? Play the conch.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it definitely, like, as you said.
We have this gritty noir mystery. Have this funky disco beat, for, like, Tenebrae.
As you were saying, like, that one scene, the lengthy rape scene, is sort of accompanied by just, like, regular, like... whimsical music that's playing. Because it's almost like a Benny Hill, like, chasing women around, trying to whip their clothes off. It's sort of played up for weird laughs rather than...
that one girl's name was Chesty.
I know.
She had it coming.
I guess so.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of what else you got.
Let's talk about how. I mean, this is low budget, but this is, like, straight from, like, the 1970s, like, public access. That opening credit, like, pre-credit sequence and credits, terrible.
It does. It does have that Bonanza opening of just, like, you get a character's face and then it freezes for a second and you get their credits.
Who does that in a movie?
I've seen it a few times. It does tend to happen in Italian movies.
I mean, I love it. I love it, like, when you're watching, like, an old show and you get to see, like, starring Michael Landon. Yeah. And you get to see him standing there, like, awkwardly looking into the camera. I mean, but that's this opening credit sequence is, like, Jack Palin. And then he's just kind of looking at the camera like, ugh. And then it goes like, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And then, too, the whole, like, horseshoes.
Yeah.
That...
Yeah, there's a whole scene where Johnny runs up to some kids playing horseshoes to show him who's the best. And Johnny throws it and he misses completely. Just terrible throw. And so then...
Well, he didn't miss completely, but he's like 2 feet.
It was awful. It's an awful throw.
I mean...
It didn't even hit... It's like this... It didn't even hit the post at all. Like, not even close.
Well, it doesn't help, too, that the posts are 2 feet apart from each other, so you can't really... But no, even then, he's like, I'm going to be sly, and I'm going to kick it near the post, and everyone's sitting there watching it, you know?
Yeah.
But Slide-Eye Lee Van Cleef from 20 feet away is like, you don't want to cheat to win, Johnny.
He's like, yeah, that's not how you win, Johnny. And then...
Which, I love that, because that's like... That's how you would expect Lee Van Cleef to be like introduced in one of these.
Exactly.
films.
That's like, how you know. You're like, he's the mentor. He's gonna teach.
He's
Johnny.
like, watch this, and then he throws a horseshoe and shows him how to get a ringer.
Yeah, even though you said it's clear that he's way too far over the line.
He's cheating like
he
a bat.
cheated too. But
I mean, he's not stepping over, but he's like leaning so far out. And
he's
again,
doing the lean.
And because it's like 2 feet apart, you can just reach his hand right over and just drop it.
Yeah. Yeah, but those scenes that thing where he has like the really goofy one-liner, they crop up here and there throughout the film. Like there's a weird scenario where Johnny's heading to Mexico and he just meets this guy in the desert that doesn't even look Mexican, and he's just offers advice and then slaps him in the face. There's all these moments of just weirdness.
But like, I was saying, like, what did he say to him?
Yeah, I have no idea.
Like,
yeah,
he's just like the lady like starts freaking out, like, don't say that to him. He thinks you're an ass, making jokes like that. Which again, that's like another Italian thing. Like when somebody says something that's like a question, it's like, how dare you make a joke like that?
Yeah,
you joke, you keyed, you should not keyed.
I love it. It's great.
How did he become mute?
Yeah, I have no idea. Maybe when he got punched in the face and he became mute. I have no idea.
From walking in the desert?
I guess, maybe without water and he became mute.
Did you see, he pounded that water jug like a champ,
yeah.
Champ. And, it's funny, that chick that was bitching him out and then giving him advice on where to go to that town, she's like, drink all my water. And,
You know what I love is when he does finally end up with Lewis and he's trying to explain what happened. And they ask him, what did you do? And he's got pen and paper. And he doesn't write it down. He draws a very generic picture of his brother getting shot by 4 people. It's great. It's like he doesn't...
And then Lee Van Cleef has to wear it all day. 4 shots or 4 people?
Yeah, I know. It's great.
Which would that even matter?
I guess he's trying to figure out how many people are... how many people are going to be his enemies.
Yeah, but Johnny wouldn't know that. He was ringing the goddamn bell in the church when he got shot. So he didn't know. He just heard the gunfire.
Oh, yes. A lot of the film doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Like, it doesn't... None of the plot really comes together very well, is what I'll say.
Like, why is Lewis's daughter Cher?
Yeah.
Like... So how old is Lee Van Cleef 70 in this, and then his daughter's 50?
Yeah, I don't know. None of the plot really comes together all that well. A lot of it is forced on the viewer by flashback sequences. There are 2 flashback sequences in here. One where they show Lewis in town,
and he's a gunslinger.
Yeah, he's a gunslinger, and his brother is also in town, and the sheriff's coming to arrest him, oh, you just killed 5 people in my town. And Father John's like, no, I'll vouch for him. And the sheriff's like, okay, yeah, Father John says it's cool.
White privilege.
Yeah, exactly. But the flashback sequences are really kind of forced in here. And it's just you're wondering what happens right now. Why is there another Lee Van Cleef character? Well, here you go.
What I don't get is the fact that after, because he's playing the poker game and he shoots the guy because he cheated at poker.
Yeah.
And then he shoots the other guys because they were trying to kill him because they said, hey, there's a bet going on in town that whoever can kill you is going to get all this money. And so they're trying to kill him, and he kills them. And then Father John's like, no, you can't be doing that. That's wrong. And he's like, all I know is the way of the gun. What did he do that would make me, makes you think it's the way of the gun? He's gambled, and then people, like,
yeah.
I don't know, what did he do before that made him like, oh, he's a enforcer.
I don't know.
He's a quick draw artist.
I didn't really think about it that much, to be honest with you.
He's just defending himself.
Yeah. I didn't really think about it that much because there's not a lot of like themes going on in this film. There's not much theme. There's nothing really about morality here. It's literally painted for you.
I mean,
this is a good person. This is a bad person.
Well, no, they did sprinkle in like, why is this going on in our town, our good Christian town that we set, that we set it up.
Well, the one thing that is weird is the end where there's the iconic spaghetti western face-off between two people
with the most god-awful camera crashes.
Yeah. Oh yeah, flipped upside down camera.
The good and the bad and the ugly, and Once Upon a Time in the West. And this is not.
But the end of it after Lewis has blown away Jack Palance's character, the film almost is trying to get some sympathy out of you. It's like played with like a very like orchestral.
Yeah, that he's dead.
Yeah, it was like no, that dude's an asshole.
Because he was like throwing money, like the $50,000 that we robbed, it's yours, it's all yours. And then he went to like grab some more cash and he shoots him, and then it's like slowly you see the money fades away and you're expecting to see a gun there, like he was gonna shoot him, and they're like, there's no gun.
There's no gun.
So he was being honest.
No, I don't care. That dude raped a woman and impregnated her. Didn't even realize that he's raped so many people. He's like, I could have kids all over the place.
And he's like, I don't want a son. Then he finds out, he's like, no, it's your son. He's like, I remember. I have a son.
Yeah, he goes fucking nuts.
We're going to go raping and pillaging together. This is, woohoo!
He's already a smart boy. He's snuck around behind my back.
He's already going down to the Mexican border singing like James Taylor's Mexico. Like, Mexico.
I don't know why. That's like another weird moment where you're supposed to have sympathy for the villain, but there's really none to be had there. And like I said, God's Gun, there's no real, there is, I guess, a little bit of that Christian element to it. But other than that, there's really no themes at all here. It's like, this guy's a good guy, this guy's a bad guy. The good guy's going to kill the bad guy, and that's it. It follows those beats like to a T. There's the whole vengeance motive, and that's like Spaghetti Western 101.
And not only that, the whole like mentor and mentee relationship is very poor.
Yeah.
How is Father John really a mentor to Johnny? He's just like, ring the bell.
Yeah.
He didn't put the candle out.
Yeah, the thing with
don't use the guns. And then he dies, and then when he meets up with Lewis, Lewis is basically like, I'll deal with it. That's,
The thing with the mentor aspect is that I don't love the mentor aspect in a lot of spaghetti westerns. A lot of times it does not work.
Well, because usually it's like this guy that's supposed to be played as like a 16-year-old, and he's like 35.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of times the mentor element is like way overplayed, and so I do like it when a spaghetti western doesn't go that route. Here, like you said, it's not a big element to it. I mean, it's the mentor.
It's supposed to be. My point is, it's supposed to be, but it's a very lacking and not fleshed out to where it's like, well, why is that even a thing? Hell, why even have the little boy here?
Yeah.
Just have it be his brother, and then like word gets sent over to Lee Van Cleef playing his brother, and then like someone tells him like, I have news from Juneau City. Your brother is dead.
Yeah, honestly, it seems like they almost forgot about the boy once it gets to that point, because first of all, he's mute. So like you really there's no character progression from there. It's just like he happens to be there. He comes back with Lee Van Cleef, but that's it.
We gotta go back to get Johnny.
Yeah, there's really no character progression for Johnny after that.
He's our Barbara.
Yeah,
we gotta go back for Johnny.
I don't have much else to add about God's Gun, do you? I think I covered everything that I wanted to.
It's surprisingly violent.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
But they cheaped and chinsed out. I thought like one of the things was cool when Chesty shot the guy in the back of the head with a shotgun. You got to see the squibs in the front of the guy's face, but it's like, I mean, it really looked chintzy and shit.
Yeah,
but it's
not
like,
really realistic.
You know.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like a lot of spaghetti westerns are like that. It's not really a realistic portrayal of
No, I
violence.
know, I know, but like the fact that they had the balls to just shoot a guy in the back of the head and you get to see it with a shotgun, and they actually, tried doing the facial squibs. It's like, I give them props for that.
Yeah.
Instead of just generic shoot off screen and see the guy like clutch. Though that the film didn't have a lot of that. Shoot off screen guy like clutching himself like, ugh,
Yeah, especially in the beginning. That whole first shootout is a lot of people clutching themselves.
And that first in Carson City or whatever the hell, where they break up the puppeteer show to rob that bank.
Oh, that's what we didn't talk about. The framing at the end of the film when Lee Van Cleef rides off into the sunset. And it's framed by that puppeteer. There's like a little stage box that the puppeteer has, and for whatever reason, this puppeteer has been following people around all over the place. He's in fucking Carson City, then he goes to Juneau City. He's already there before the gang gets there.
He's heading to Mexico now.
Yeah, apparently he's everywhere. But there's that framing sequence, and it's very, very reminiscent of better directors from spaghetti westerns, but certainly, I guess it works here as well. I don't know what we're really supposed to get from that, though. It seems like the puppeteer, is supposed to be, that's supposed to be a theme. A
theme
theme
of story. He was telling a story.
I got it, I guess. But
then it's like, now this story's about to unfold, and
I guess it doesn't. I don't know that it really works that well, especially because if you weren't paying attention, you might have forgotten about the puppeteer. He's literally only on camera for 2 times in the entire movie. You would forget about him otherwise. So I don't know that it works that well.
I don't know why, but the way he sounded and kind of looked made me think of like Pappy from from Bubble Boy.
Yeah.
Punani! No.
Yeah. All right. So I gotta think of a scale here.
Out of 10.
Yeah. There's not. See, the thing about God's Gun is there's not really that much stuff that stands out about it. So you can't, we had a hard time picking out an intro. We're having a hard time picking out a scale from the film. There's just not that much that stands out about it. I guess out of 10 bushy Lee Van Cleef mullets.
Out of place, bushy Lee Van Cleef.
What would you give God's Gun?
I'll give it a 4. This is a bad movie. This is a really bad movie. And it's not entertaining in the least. Lee Van Cleef looks like Pat Morita and Charles Bronson were fused into one spaghetti western outlaw. I don't know what the hell happened to his face and hair in this movie, but that's what he looks like. He gives probably the most uninspired performance I've ever seen. Granted, Lee Van Cleef, as much as I love and like him, he is a very stoic actor, which, depending on how you like your actors, he can come off as wooden. I get that, but it's the same thing with like Bronson, but I like that because it fits the roles that they play. Here, though, he's just totally uninspired. Jack Palance is great at being hammy and goofy, but it doesn't fit the tone. I don't think it really fits his character, and it's just really weird. The score's atrocious. All I have now stuck in my head is the Bonanza theme, which is miles and miles better. But it's like the Italians just took the Bonanza theme and ran wild with it. The soundtracks sound like their sound editors. Like, we had 30 minutes to have this orchestra lay down 10 tracks that we're going to loop incessantly. And that's something we didn't point out either. This film is not mute at all. There's music in every goddamn scene. For every little beat in this film, they feel the need to fill any silence with this god-awful, out-of-place soundtrack. It's just atrocious. Outside of Lee Van Cleef and Jack Palance, who both give very uninspired performances, the rest of the cast is just fucking dreadful. The story is beat by beat for every spaghetti western revenge story that you've ever seen before. It's low budget. It's got the worst aspects of the 70s sticking around in it with its how people look and dress, and this is not if if this was like a film that's near the end of spaghetti western's heyday, I can see why that's sunsetting on the genre, because you're miles and miles away from like Once Upon a Time in the West.
Yeah, I guess I'd probably give it like a 4.5. It's probably one of the lowest tier spaghetti westerns. Obviously, we're getting out of the era in 1976 when this film released. But Lee Van Cleef here really looks like he's so bored of what he's doing that...
Well, wouldn't you, though, by that point? Like, if you were being typecasted, like, all the time... I mean, I imagine at first, like, fun and cool, like, you know...
Yeah, this seems like he's like, just absolutely bored with it. He just is doing it for the paycheck, and in this case, probably 2 paychecks, you know, because he does have a couple screen moments where he's on screen twice. So, he's sharing duties with himself.
That's why Clint was smart to get out when he did, for the most part.
Yeah.
You know, and make...
I just think that here, like, it just shows that Lee Van Cleef is bored with what he's doing at this point, and he's really just in it as a job. And that in itself, you know, like you said, Lee Van Cleef, he can occasionally come off as very dry, but it's sort of an intentional dry. In this film, he's just dry. There's no, nothing else going on here. It is what it is, and whatever. He didn't really put in a lot of effort in this one.
Just like that Brut IPA, dry. And...
Yeah. Whereas I would say that Jack Palance actually did put in some effort here. He is giving, like, especially his facial expressions, those are like the most effort. Although it's probably better represented in a different film, because this is not really that type of film, and it often comes across as very tone deaf, and there's a lot of elements to it that's, I don't know if we're supposed to be laughing at it, but they don't really work in the scheme of the storyline.
And as I said before too, I don't think the dubbing helps.
No,
because I think because for all we know, his vocal take during those could have been a lot more charismatic and enthusiastic compared to what we get in the dub, which is just like I can just imagine him sitting in front of like a little prompt holding the lines and him just reading them verbatim. Like, all right, let's get this over with.
Yeah, I just most of it just doesn't work that well. It's a very cut and dry revenge story. Very generic spaghetti western. Soundtrack's not good. It's no Ennio Morricone for sure. And ultimately, it's just this. There's a reason why this hasn't been released. There's not really anybody craving for God's Gun. I don't think there's anybody. There's only like the hardcore fans of spaghetti westerns. There may be somebody who saw it one time and was like, I think I love God's Gun, and then they like revisit it, and they probably don't, because they've seen a lot better spaghetti westerns since then.
Editing is terrible too. You can't tell if it's supposed to be night or day, because like how like back then like no one shot during the night. It was impossibly hard to light and get it to look good, so they just kind of darkened the screen a little bit, and it looks bad, but you know what they're trying to go for.
Yeah.
Well, doesn't it help in this too that they also add the terrible editing of like crickets in the background or like a howling wind on a plane.
Yeah.
Where there's no wind blowing because you can see the characters and there's no wind blowing through their hair or anything, but you just get to hear the constant like.
The editing is difficult because this is supposed to take place in the span of a few days, and you can't really tell how long it's taken for it to, because you don't know what's night and what's day, and sometimes like it was just day and now it's night.
Could be years.
Yeah, it doesn't really make much sense. So, but yeah, this is not the greatest spaghetti western. It's an okay one, but certainly nothing outstanding. And there's a reason why it's fairly, obscure. So. All right, so we are back in 2 weeks, and we will be covering, I think, Suspiria, right? The new one.
Finally.
The Suspiria remake, which is out on Blu-ray. We'll be covering that because we've wanted to do it for quite a while, and we'll now just be getting to it since we weren't able to see it in theaters. So thank you for listening. We will see you next time. We are on Facebook, facebook.com/Blood and Black Rum Podcast. We're on Stitcher, iTunes, Google Podcasts, any other podcasting app that you can think of. Download us, subscribe, and leave us a nice review. We have a Twitter, @BloodandBlackRum. We have an email address, bloodandblackrumpodcast@gmail.com. And as always, you can donate to us on our Patreon page. at our Podbean accounts, bloodandblackrunpodcast.podbean.com. Become a patron on there and donate at least $1 a month, and you do get episodes early. So think about all of that. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time for Suspiria.
Take care.